Don't spend that Washington quarter yet. Some quarters look normal but are actually rare coins worth hundreds. Check yours. That tiny error or mint mark could change everything. The 1978 Washington quarter is one of those coins that most people have seen thousands of times in their life. It's familiar, common, instantly recognizable, and for most people it's nothing more than a simple 25-cent piece used to buy snacks, pay for parking, or tossed into a drawer at the end of the day. But hidden among the millions of ordinary 1978 quarters, a very small number of them contain rare minting errors so striking, so unusual, and so visually obvious that they have transformed these everyday coins into some of the most sought-after collectibles of the late 1970s. And what's even harder to believe is that some of these rare error quarters have sold for staggering amounts, from $55,500 all the way up to $165,200, depending on the severity of the error and the condition of the coin. To appreciate why the 1978 quarter has become such a surprising treasure for collectors, it helps to understand what was happening at the U.S. Mint during that time. The 1970s were a decade full of high production numbers. The country needed coins, the economy was shifting, and the mint was under enormous pressure to keep up with demand. Machines ran constantly, dies wore down, and every now and then, the minting process slipped just enough to create an extraordinary error. Some of these mistakes were quickly caught and destroyed, but others slipped through quietly, went into boxes, out into circulation, and began their long journey through the pockets and hands of millions of people who never suspected what they were holding. One of the most famous and visually dramatic errors from the 1978 quarter is the off-center strike. This happens when the blank planchet isn't fully aligned under the dies. Instead of being perfectly centered, the design is pushed to one side. Sometimes just a little, creating a subtle shift that only a trained eye would catch. But other times the shift is extreme. So extreme that part of Washington's portrait disappears, the date is cut off, or part of the rim is completely missing. The more severe the off-center strike, the more collectors are willing to pay for it, especially if the coin still shows a full date. A major off-center strike on a 1978 quarter can easily turn a simple 25-cent coin into a 4- or 5-figure prize. Another type of error that makes the 1978 quarter incredibly valuable is the double strike. This happens when the coin is accidentally struck twice by the dies, with the second strike landing slightly misaligned from the first. The result is a quarter with doubled features. Washington's face may have a shadow, the letters might appear stretched or repeated, and the date could look like it has been printed twice. These coins catch your eye immediately because they simply look wrong, almost like the design is vibrating on the metal. The stronger and clearer the doubling, the more valuable the coin becomes, especially if the second strike is bold and obvious. But some of the most astonishing errors from 1978 involve planchet mistakes. These include wrong metal planchets, clipped planchets, cracked planchets, and even transitional planchet errors. Imagine picking up a quarter and realizing it feels too light or sounds different when dropped. Imagine seeing the edge of the coin and discovering a missing piece that looks like it was bitten off. Or flipping it over and noticing a strange raised line caused by a die crack. These small but powerful details instantly transform an ordinary quarter into something collectors get excited about. One of the reasons these error coins have become even more valuable is the fact that the Washington quarter design was already well established by 1978. People didn't pay close attention to the details anymore. Coins were used quickly, spent without thought, and very few people took the time to inspect them closely. That allowed many error coins to circulate undetected for years. Some were kept accidentally, tossed into jars, or slipped into forgotten boxes hidden in closets and attics. And today, those forgotten coins may be worth far more than anyone ever imagined. Part of what makes the 1978 quarter so interesting is that each error tells its own story. A clipped planchet might reveal a moment when the metal sheet was misfed. A double die might capture a moment of mechanical misalignment. A major off-center strike might reflect the exact second when the planchet slipped out of place. These aren't just mistakes. They're tiny pieces of history that represent the unpredictable nature of mass production. And collectors don't just want the coins. They want the stories behind them. What truly drives excitement is knowing that these rare error coins can show up anywhere. Someone might find one while rolling coins at home. Someone else might notice one while cleaning out a parent's old belongings. There are collectors who discovered them while working in retail or counting change at the end of a shift. Over the years, many of the most valuable 1978-era quarters were found by complete accident. People spent years carrying them around without realizing the value trapped inside a single piece of metal. When these rare examples appear at auctions, they almost always attract intense bidding wars. A dramatic off-center 1978 quarter in near-perfect condition once shocked experts by reaching well into the high five figures. A bold double-strike example sold for an amount that left collectors stunned. Some of the most eye-catching planchet errors have reached values between $55,500 and $165,200, numbers that would seem impossible for a simple quarter, until you understand just how rare these mistakes truly are. And the best part is that many of these coins are still out there, hidden in circulation or tucked away in containers that haven't been opened in decades. Every day, people unknowingly pass these coins from hand to hand, never realizing that they may have overlooked a life-changing treasure. So imagine this for a moment. You're sorting through some loose change. You pick up a 1978 quarter, expecting nothing unusual. But then something catches your eye. Maybe the edge looks wrong. Maybe part of Washington's head seems shifted. Maybe the word liberty looks doubled. Maybe the date is cut off. And that small, tiny moment of curiosity could be the beginning of an incredible discovery. This is what makes coin collecting so fascinating. It teaches you to look at the world differently, to appreciate the small details, to understand that even the simplest objects can hold value beyond imagination. A quarter is supposed to be worth 25 cents, but when the mint accidentally creates something unique, something one-of-a-kind, that quarter becomes a treasure. The 1978 Washington quarter-era coins are more than just rare. They're reminders that extraordinary things often hide in the most ordinary places. And the next rare discovery could be waiting in your pocket right now, disguised as a simple piece of change that everyone else has overlooked. Take a moment. Look closely, because sometimes all it takes is one coin to surprise you and one discovery to change everything. The story of the 1965 U.S. Washington quarter-dollar-era coin begins in one of the most transformative periods in American coinage history, a time when confusion, shortages, and rushed minting created an environment where mistakes could slip through the cracks and transform ordinary change into something extraordinary. When people think of a quarter from 1965, they imagine the common clad coin that replaced silver, a coin so widely produced that most assume there is nothing special about it. But every now and then, a small handful of these coins reveal something different, something unexpected, something that turns an everyday object into a treasure. That is exactly what happens with the rare 1965 Washington quarter-era coins, and the story behind them is one that collectors love with an intensity that never fades. It all began when the United States Mint transitioned away from 90% silver coinage. The country faced an increasing shortage of silver, and to keep up with demand, the mint switched to a copper-nickel clad composition. The year 1965 became the first in a new era of modern coinage. But whenever a major change happens in the minting process, chaos inevitably follows. New machinery, new planchets, and rush schedules meant that mistakes were not just possible. They were practically guaranteed. While millions of regular 1965 quarters were produced, a tiny, tiny fraction of them were struck on old silver planchets left over from previous years. This simple mix-up created one of the most desirable mint errors in the entire Washington quarter series. Imagine picking up a 1965 quarter and feeling a slightly different texture or noticing a different sound when dropping it on a table. Most people would shrug and move on, but experienced collectors can hear the unmistakable ring of silver. And that is where the excitement begins. The moment a collector realizes that a coin from 1965, supposed to be clad, might actually be silver, everything changes. These silver planchet errors weigh slightly more than regular quarters, and that tiny difference can translate into massive value. The rarest pieces in high grade have shocked the collecting world by selling at prices from $60,200 all the way up to an incredible $168,500. Depending on condition, preservation, and market demand, it's almost impossible to imagine that someone could hold that kind of money in the palm of their hand without even realizing it. But the silver planchet error is not the only fascinating thing about 1965 quarters. The mint was operating under immense production pressure, which resulted in additional striking mistakes that created off-center strikes, double dies, and partial collar errors. These mistakes were never meant to leave the mint, yet somehow they did, quietly slipping into circulation. For collectors, these errors are more than accidents. They are snapshots of American minting history during an era when the system was straining under major shifts. Each error coin carries a story, and collectors know that stories increase value just as much as rarity. The silver planchet errors hold the highest prestige, but even the other minting mistakes fetch strong prices. A 1965 quarter with a dramatic off-center strike or a bold double die can capture the attention of the market, especially when preserved in high grade. When these coins surface at major auctions, the atmosphere always becomes electric. Auctioneers know that bidders will fight fiercely for a coin that marks such an iconic moment in American numismatic history. Collectors love the thrill, the history, and the possibility of discovering something that others overlooked. The most thrilling part is that many of these error coins remain undiscovered. They are out there, possibly sitting in old jars, tucked away in forgotten drawers, or mixed in with pocket change. Every time someone empties their coin jar or sorts through inherited belongings, there stands a tiny chance that a treasure is hiding among the ordinary. People have found valuable error coins in the unlikeliest places, and it is that sense of possibility that continues to fuel interest in the 1965 Washington quarter. Collectors always emphasize how important it is to examine details closely. A 1965 quarter struck on a silver planchet will have a bright, almost mirror-like luster, a distinct sound when tapped, and a weight of 6.25 grams instead of the standard 5.67 grams. These differences might seem small, but they are exactly what turn a common coin into something worth tens, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. The excitement of that discovery is what keeps collectors searching. One of the most incredible stories involves a man who discovered a rare 1965 silver quarter in a small box of coins he kept from his childhood. He had no idea what he possessed until he happened to watch a documentary about error coins and recognized the characteristics. After verifying the weight, he sent it to be authenticated, and when it appeared at auction, bidders immediately recognized the rarity. What started as a forgotten childhood collection ended as a life-changing, five-figure payday. Stories like that are what inspire thousands of people to take another look at the coins they already own. The era surrounding 1965 also carried a culture of secrecy and confusion. The mint had temporarily removed mint marks from coins between 1965 and 1967 in an attempt to discourage hoarding. Without clear markings, the mint hoped people would stop saving coins based on rarity. Ironically, this move only increased interest over time, because collectors saw these years as transitional and filled with potential errors. The mint's attempt to reduce hoarding ended up fueling an entire generation of numismatists who obsessed over every detail of coins from those years. The 1965 quarter embodies that strange period, symbolizing the tension between an old system and a new one. Mint workers during this time often described the pressure they faced. Machines ran almost non-stop, and mistakes created by shifting dies or leftover silver planchets were nearly impossible to catch. Most of the workers were unaware of the long-term impact of those errors. To them, it was simply about moving coins out fast enough to meet demand. They never imagined that decades later, collectors would passionately hunt for the mistakes that slipped through. Even today, experts believe only a fraction of all 1965 error quarters have been found. Many may still be hiding in circulation or tucked away in forgotten stashes. That mystery, the idea that someone might stumble upon a coin worth $60,200 to $168,500 without even realizing it, is what makes this story so exciting. And because 1965 marked such a dramatic shift in minting technology and composition, collectors will forever see it as a pivotal year. Anyone interested in coins always hears the same advice: check everything. The thrill of coin collecting is not just about buying expensive pieces. It's about searching, discovering, and understanding the stories embedded in each coin. The 1965 Washington quarter error coins belong to a special category of finds that connect history, rarity, and human curiosity. You don't have to be an expert to make an incredible discovery. You just need to pay attention, look closely, and know the signs. As people continue to revisit old collections, search through pocket change, and explore coin rolls from banks, the dream of finding one of these rare quarters remains alive. And that dream grows every time a new story surfaces about someone discovering a valuable coin they once thought was insignificant. The excitement never fades because the possibility never disappears. In the world of coin collecting, moments like these are magical. A small metal disc, barely larger than a thumb, carries decades of history, unexpected value, and the power to surprise even the most experienced collectors. The 1965 Washington $quarter error coins remind us that not everything rare looks rare at first glance. Sometimes the most extraordinary things hide in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone with curiosity and attention to detail to reveal their true worth. If you ever come across a 1965 quarter, don't treat it like just another piece of loose change. Hold it, feel its weight, study its edge, and listen to its sound. Because you never know, you might be holding a treasure that slipped through history, a coin born from a chaotic moment in the mint's past, a mistake that transformed into one of the greatest prizes a collector could hope to find. The 1994 Washington quarter might look like just another coin that slips through your hands every day. But what if I told you that a single mistake made during its creation could turn this ordinary piece of metal into something worth more than most people make in a month? Imagine the kind of surprise someone feels when they're digging through a jar of old change, thinking they'll maybe find enough to buy a cup of coffee, only to discover that one quarter inside could be worth more than a used car. That's the incredible world of the 1994 error Washington quarter. A coin that continues to amaze collectors, surprise beginners, and spark excitement among experts who know just how special some of these rare minting mistakes can be. And while millions of standard 1994 quarters were produced, only a handful came out of the mint with flaws so dramatic, so eye-catching, and so important that they've fetched astonishing prices ranging from $44,600 all the way up to $135,300. For a coin with a face value of just 25 cents, that's the kind of leap that makes collectors' hearts race. The story begins with how the quarter is made. In 1994, the minting process was already highly refined, but even with the best machines, errors sometimes slipped through. You might not think precision equipment could make mistakes, but the truth is that the smallest shift, a fraction of a second's delay, or a tiny misalignment can lead to coins unlike anything the mint intended. These errors are rare by nature. They aren't planned, repeated, or guaranteed. They're accidental masterpieces born out of mechanical hiccups. And because the mint destroys most imperfect coins before they ever leave the facility, the ones that escape become treasures the moment they enter circulation. That's exactly what happened with some of the 1994 Washington quarters, coins that should have looked like any other, but instead came out with dramatic differences that collectors now chase with passion. One of the most fascinating things about these error coins is how easily they go unnoticed. Someone could have spent one at a gas station. It might have been passed as change at a grocery store. It might even be sitting in someone's drawer at this very moment, unseen, unappreciated, and untouched. The wild part? These rare quarters don't look like treasure at first glance. But when you turn them under the right light, examine the rim, the lettering, the design, you begin to spot the physical scars left behind by the minting error that transformed it into a prize. Sometimes it's an off-center strike. Other times, a double die effect adds a shadow-like duplication to the design. There have even been examples of broad strikes, clipped planchets, and striking misalignments so bold that even a beginner collector could identify them. These are the small details that make a 1994 quarter worth more than $44,600, and in some stunning cases, even reaching that incredible $135,300 mark at auction. Imagine the excitement of someone discovering one for the first time. They might have picked it up because something just looked off. Maybe the edges seemed wider, or Washington's profile looked doubled. Maybe the rim was uneven, or the reverse had a strange spread to the eagle's wings. Those subtle clues are signs that the coin didn't follow the minting blueprint. And in the world of coin collecting, anything that breaks from the standard pattern in such a dramatic way becomes a point of obsession. Collectors don't just want perfect coins. They want unique coins, coins with stories, coins that exist because something unexpected happened behind the scenes. And few things create more interest than a minting error tied to a widely collected and historically important series like the Washington quarter BY 1994. The quarter already had decades of history behind it. The Washington design, originally intended to be temporary back in 1932, had become a permanent part of American currency. That meant collectors and the general public were used to seeing the same features: Washington's profile on the front, the heraldic eagle with spread wings on the back. Anything that altered this familiar design pulled immediate attention. So when an error version surfaced, experts were quick to analyze it. They examined the dies used that year, looking for any known varieties. They checked records, studied minting patterns, and reviewed thousands of coins to understand exactly how such mistakes occurred. And the more they studied, the more they realized how scarce these errors truly were. In fact, the rarity is a major reason why serious collectors are willing to pay eye-popping prices. When a coin jumps from 25 cents to over $44,600, it's not just because it's unusual. It's because there are so few like it that owning one feels like holding a piece of minting history. And when a particularly dramatic error hits the market, one that stands out even among rare pieces, that's when the value climbs into the $135,300 range. Auctions become a battlefield of competitive bidding, each participant hoping to secure a coin they might never see again in their lifetime. Collectors often describe the thrill of chasing coins like this as addictive. The possibility that you might stumble across one in ordinary places keeps the excitement alive. Maybe it's in the back of a cash register. Maybe it's in a box of old coins handed down by a relative. Maybe it's still circulating, waiting for someone observant enough to recognize its value. The world of numismatics is filled with stories of ordinary people who had no idea they were holding a small fortune until they took a closer look. And the 1994 error Washington quarter fits perfectly into that tradition. As you imagine this coin in your hand, think about how it traveled. From the mint, through machines and inspections, escaping destruction, slipping through fingers, being tossed into pockets, dropped into jars, passed through countless transactions, carrying a hidden worth no one realized. Every nick, scratch, or fingerprint tells part of the journey. But underneath all that, the error remains, the feature that transforms it from a common quarter into an extraordinary one. When collectors talk about these coins, they speak with a mix of respect and excitement, because they understand just how unlikely it is for an error piece from 1994 to have survived. What's even more impressive is how the demand for these rare quarters keeps rising. New collectors enter the hobby every year, inspired by stories of valuable finds. Social media posts showcasing incredible error coins spark curiosity. Auction houses highlight unbelievable sales, and suddenly more people start checking their change. It becomes a trend, a movement, a hunt. And right at the center of it all is the possibility that someone might uncover a 1994 Washington quarter worth as much as $135,300 simply because they looked closely. That's why knowledge is so important. When you know what to look for, you increase your chances of spotting something special. You'll want to examine the lettering for doubling. Check for off-center strikes where portions of the design are missing. Look for extra thickness in the text or odd spacing in the date. Tilt the coin to catch the light on the edges. Sometimes a clipped planchet reveals itself through its unique shape. Every detail can matter, and discovering one of these features could mean you found a coin valued anywhere from $44,600 to $135,300. The idea that a small mistake can create something so valuable might feel unbelievable, but that's exactly what keeps collectors interested. Error coins stand apart from the rest because they remind us that even in a system built on precision, perfection isn't guaranteed. And when imperfection escapes into the world in such a rare and dramatic way, it becomes far more interesting than anything the mint ever intended. The 1994 Washington quarter error coin is a perfect example. A coin that shouldn't exist in its flawed form, yet does, and because of that, carries a remarkable story and extraordinary value. So the next time a quarter lands in your hand, give it a second look. You never know what secrets it might hold. The next extraordinary find could be sitting quietly in someone's pocket right now, waiting for the right eyes to discover the error that turns it from an everyday coin into a treasure worth tens of thousands. Maybe even over $135,300.